So I'm speaking with composer Sherri Chung, whose talents as a musical storyteller has quickly gained her attention as a prominent talent in the industry. She's worked on various projects ranging from The Cleveland Show, Family Guy, The Flash, Blindspot, Riverdale, and many, many more. Sherri, thanks so much for taking the time today. It's so great to chat.
Thanks for having me on, Kaya. Appreciate it.
So to start, I would love to know kind of your origin story, kind of what got you into music, and then at what point in your life did you decide, okay, I'm going to focus and make this my career and what I'm going to do for a living?
Yeah, so I got started. I think I was a musical child, even though I didn't come from a musical family, and I was one of those like weird kids that begged my mother for piano lessons and please, I really want to play. And then I would, get up at 6 in the morning and just play all the time, silly little pieces and stuff like that. And then I started training classically on piano, and then around like age 12, my talent caught up with my age or the other way around, and it was just like, oh, this is like not really for me. I mean, the classical performance is not really quite for me. But I did spend a lot of time playing in church groups and church bands and stuff like that. So I got a lot of great ensemble experience, and even just musical the study of music as well. And so I think that was a really great background. And then in probably around when I was 12, I forget when the movie came out, but I heard this amazing score, Michael Kamen's score to Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, and I was
Yeah.
like hooked. I'm like, this is what I want to do. This is, so it was like fairly young age, but at that age you really also don't really know how to pursue some of these things. So I just kind of, just kept sort of listening to scores when I could. And then, I went to school. I did an undergrad in composition and theory, but it wasn't focusing on film scoring yet, which I'm really happy about that path, because I think it just gave me a really great background to like study the actual, construction of music and the theory of music and the concept. And, because writing a picture, I feel like it's something entirely different from just composing
Right.
or from composing alone. Yeah, exactly. So I feel like first and foremost I'm a composer, and then even though that was always my goal to be a film composer, I did not actually study that until graduate school at the University of Southern California. So then I came out here and did the graduate program, and then was, like little hatchlings from the program were just sort of like released into the wild and like, go forth and fend for yourself. And then, I've been just working my way up. So
So when
that's the
you,
start.
yeah, so when you first kind of were let out into the world and it was up to you to kind of start finding kind of the first jobs, I mean, how do you go about kind of getting your foot in the door? What were the kind of the first big breaks you got and kind of the relationships that you built that kind of led to where you are right now?
Yeah, so when you first, I think a lot of people experience this when they get out of school, just period. You're just like, oh, what do I do? And I think what's difficult about this particular industry is that there really isn't a clear set path. Like if you want to be a doctor or a surgeon, like the path you have to take, and you go to school and you do your residency and all that. But it's not that way here. You don't necessarily have an apprenticeship or an assistant position. I felt that I would make a pretty good assistant, and I was really eager to kind of try and pursue, I could try and pursue an assistant position, although I don't, now that I think about it, I don't really think that I tried to do it, but I did end up being an assistant to Walter Murphy,
Yeah.
who writes for Family Guy and American Dad, and at the time was taking on The Cleveland Show. And he did not need an additional writer. He did not need, he also didn't need anyone to get him coffee. So, but it was an assistant position. It was where it was, just doing some prepping things for his sessions, and I got to go to the sessions every week, and then eventually I worked my way up and became one of his orchestrators, which was really exciting. And it was a really great position for me because I think it allowed me, it was a part-time situation, so it allowed me to really just keep pursuing my own, doing student films and doing smaller projects and sort of gaining traction in the much, much smaller, lower budget to no budget type of projects that were just sort of word of mouth. So,
Yeah.
which I think is really important when we're, as younger composers, because then we can really start to form a voice. So, that was, it was one of those things where it's like we all just kind of have to just keep saying yes to, to projects. One, because we need the money, but two, because we need to really be able to cut our teeth, and like I said, try and find our musical voice. So that was really what I spent a lot of my time doing. And I did also some piano teaching on the side because it was a great way to stay in touch with just the not just pedagogy, but just also those like, sometimes when you teach things, you actually learn them even better. So it was a really great way to stay in touch with that, and of course supplement the income.
Yeah. I mean, that's really cool because I've talked to many composers assistants who, they barely have enough time to do anything. And I'm like, oh, are you working on your own stuff? And they are always like, well, not really. I don't really have time for that. But to be able to kind of shape your sound like that early in your career, I think that was really awesome.
Yeah, no, it was definitely important. I think for me, for my journey. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, everyone's journey is different, absolutely. So when did you meet Blake? Because Blake Neely is kind of a big part of your life and your career. And I just interviewed Blake for the score for the SCL, and we did talk about how he kind of brought his team in and really embraced doing co-composing and co-credits and really and that's where you are now with Riverdale. So kind of talk about that journey with meeting Blake, working with him, and how that kind of relationship has evolved over the years.
Yeah, I think it's a fun story. I really enjoy telling it actually. So I met Blake when he was an advisor at USC and I was a student. And he taught a class for a semester, and I was just, one of the people in his class. And I just stayed in touch with him. I was always really impressed with not only just his music, but like even like his sense of drama, which again I think is so. I mean, that to me is like, well, I think for a lot of us is really the sole difference between composing and then composing to picture. It's really translating that into the drama and how you read a scene and translate that into music. And so I was always really impressed with that and learned a lot. And so I just stayed in touch with him over the years, subsequent, subsequent to graduating, and just sort of, as I put it, like I professionally stalked him, just like, hey, just gentle emails here and there, like just, hey, I'm still around. And maybe I'd send him a track or two. Just, again, I didn't want to obviously inundate the guy. I knew he was very busy, but and then a year after I graduated, I ended up doing the Sundance Composer Lab in 2010, and that happened to be, which I didn't know at the time, but that happened to be his first year that he was becoming an advisor at that in that workshop. So that was kind of what I would think is the more pivotal moment in our professional partnership, because that was the moment, if you know anything about the Sundance Composer Lab, it's just it's six people, in a very small, closed and, intimate environment. And the advisors are really able to get to know everybody's music and really able to talk to people, and you have to have personal conversations and really just dig into, what the project at hand. So that was really, I think, a really great time for him to get to know my music and for us to talk more about, my approach and how, and learn things from him. And then, when he took on, he started doing a pilot. We pitched together on a couple of things that just didn't pan out, and then I ended up being his vocalist for a couple of projects of his,
Right.
which
Yeah.
allowed us not so much on a compositional level, but on just professionally. Hey, we do work together. That works out. We have a good back and forth and a good dialogue with each other. And then when he got the Supergirl pilot, that was the call. That was the one for me that was like, oh, okay. And he said, I really have this idea for this part of the show and this part of Supergirl's character. And I know your voice, I know your musical voice, and I know, some of the styles that you do, and I know, and so he brought me in to really try and develop with my sound, I guess already established sound, but I've obviously grown a lot since then.
Yeah.
But then and just and to sort of just help shape that pilot with him. And then from there, which was really great. And then it seemed like, and then I worked on a bunch of other scenes, and they seemed to be a really great fit. And so I ended up writing for him on, not only doing a lot of writing on Supergirl, but then also Legends of Tomorrow, which was another DC comic show. And I no longer work on those two anymore, but I do. It did lead to Blindspot, which I now have a co-credit with Blake, as well as Riverdale, which I also have a co-credit for. So it just sort of grew from the Supergirl and kind of being brought in for that reason, and then obviously, as we know, Blake has expanded his team, and so I'm pretty happy to be a part of that and be able to grow his business with him, and as well as growing my own.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about working on Riverdale because that's such a, I mean, it's part of like popular culture phenomenon now, and getting to kind of you're getting now to shape the kind of the musical world about this. So, like, what what kind of musical world is Riverdale, and what do the stories and characters need from the score that you're, providing?
Yeah, so Riverdale is such a fun show to work on. I think that the creator Roberto of that show is just it's so amazing, and we love working with him. He's so when Blake was developing the sound of the show, and I was he was lead composer at the time, so I was sort of helping him develop
Right,
that
right.
with his lead. And one of the things that we were describing it as, it should the music should feel almost like a blanket, like a warm blanket wrapped around this like world, very stylized visual world. Something that Roberto was telling us at the very beginning when he was creating the show, and we were writing the music and figuring out the sound, is he said he wanted the audience to not really know what decade we're in. When you watch the
Mm.
show, you see cell phones and laptops, but you also see like 70s muscle cars and 50s cars, and you have a diner, and you have, even the costumes are taken from sort of multiple genres and decades of fashion and stuff. And so that was one of the things that he wanted the music, and something that Blake and I discussed as well, that, okay, so we don't want to go dated with the music. We don't want to ever put it in a specific decade. That said, we will branch out to, sometimes it's fun to use 80s synths and some of these sort of throwback classic sounds in not only film scoring, especially since we've moved a little bit into the horror genre feeling in some
Yeah.
cases. So I would say that the function of our score in this show is really to lay, just a sonic bed. This is how I see it too. It's like, laying down a sonic bed where the story can unfold and the characters can develop, and it doesn't, there are definitely times that we need to do, the scare and really push something if it's, it needs pace or something like that. But most of the time, I feel like the approach is more towards, just having it provide the right context for things to unfold and for it to sit when it needs to sit, and also move when it needs to move. So it's not something that's really turning a bunch of corners and commenting on every single piece of action. And, of course, the writing and acting is so great
Yeah,
there. So that,
absolutely.
yeah.
So when you're handling a television show, and I talked to Blake a little bit about it, but I kind of trying to get your point of view too. Is like when you have these kind of like season-long arcs with characters and reveals and things that kind of develop early in the season and then kind of pay off at the end of the season. Are you able to kind of work on that musically? Do you get to kind of look at the scripts and or like the outlines maybe and know where the season's going, or do you kind of handle just each episode one at a time and just kind of take it as it comes?
So yeah, I feel like with the arc of the whole thing, we know at the beginning, like last year we had a conversation with Roberto, and we're like, hey, so what's season two? What's the big thing in season two? And he told us about the Black Hood, but we didn't really want to know more than that. Like, we didn't know what. I don't want to know who the Black Hood is. I don't want to know anything about that, because you might give it away musically. You
Right.
might not. And plus, it's just, look, we composers, we don't get much time to watch other things. So if this is going to be my source of entertainment as well, then I want to be surprised. I want to take the journey with the audience, as it were. But we do get some sort of like overarching or arching thing, just so that we have, it is actually really, I think it's good to know that, so that we can at least say, okay, this is a spot where we really need to develop a sound here, because,
Right.
Hiram is coming back, and Hiram is going to be very much a part of season two. So that was something that I really worked on. It's like, okay, I need to create a sound for Hiram and expand the sound of the lodges to sort of, again, set some sort of musical foundation for that story to unfold and give us some motifs and some things to go from. So to a certain extent, yes, and then very specifically, no, because it's a little bit entertaining, and we don't want to accidentally give it away. And but yeah, I think those conversations are very important at the very beginning, just to kind of get and throughout. And sometimes we'll get that note as well, like, hey, create something for this thing, this character, because this is going to be a growing storyline.
Right, right.
Or developing storyline.
Yeah. But I think it's great I think for you too, because you get to react to it kind of organically, and then you kind of can hone in like, oh, what was my emotional reaction right there? And it kind of, you already get that emotional feed for you. So you know how to
Right?
translate that musically. Yeah.
Yeah, right, and there's something to be said for like first impression. There's something to be
Exactly.
said for like your first instinct, and it's like, okay, that oftentimes it has to be a little bit revised, but oftentimes concept of the first instinct is the one. So you're right. I think that not knowing those things ahead of time really helps with the development of the music in that way.
Yeah, yeah. So kind of looking at your process overall, it doesn't have to be television or film or anything like that. But and I know this question the answer might be different for every project. But for you, when you're starting on something, whether you're sitting in front of a blank slate, and you're trying to find that first spark of inspiration, that first note. I mean, where does that first note come from? I mean, do you have a kind of a process where you look for that first note? Do you look at an image? Do you look at the first cut? Do you read the script? I mean, are you just kind of take on what the project kind of speaks to you every different time?
So yeah, I feel like that there are some composers that probably really don't like to hear any temp music. They don't really want to hear necessarily someone else's ideas for the project. They kind of want to go into it themselves and figure it out. And I kind of split the difference between that. So I guess, I guess that's musical, but before I get even to that part, definitely having a dialogue with the creator or the writer or the director, whoever, or the showrunner, whoever is the one who would know the direction, at least, whoever talks about that, and just have a dialogue of like, let's just talk about your story. Let's just talk dramatically. Let's not talk musically. Let's just talk like drama and what is the story that you're trying to tell. And then I try and think about, okay, then what is the function of the score? Because if left to my own devices, I'll just like paint all over this thing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And it's just like, oh, well, that's not really necessary. This is because it's like, oh, I just want to write. So I feel like obviously this is writing to picture is that you need to write to the picture and is dictated by the picture and the story. So I definitely, after that conversation with a director or showrunner, then I like to think about, okay, what is the function of the score overall globally, and then you can go scene by scene, and then to answer your question about like where does that first note come from? I don't know. I probably panic for a little bit, and then from that panic, I feel like I don't know. Like I said, sometimes I do like to hear a little bit of the temp and just a little, or just at least references of like, hey, what tonally, what were we thinking? And then from there, I do go like, okay, tonally. Before we're talking about, is it C, or do I write in F sharp, or is it major, or is it minor? I just more go like, well, what's the tone? What's the feel? What do I need to feel right now? And then, I probably start improvising on piano first. That's my main instrument. It's also just if I hear a piano, I can also hear the other instruments that might replace the piano.
Yeah.
So, it's just I don't know. It's a very tactile thing, obviously.
Right.
So I feel like for me that's just how I start kind of noodling around and then coming up with concepts that way. But that's conversation, then drama, then tone, and then finally like a note.
Funny.
I don't know.
I know.
Sorry. After panic and fear, and yes. Then the note.
Then the note. So overall, in your experience so far, have you found kind of any genres that you really love writing for? Do you really love horror? Do you really love drama? Is there something your personal taste that you really kind of gravitate towards?
In a personal taste, you know what? It's funny, and this is probably going to sound like a very diplomatic answer, but I think it's really true. I think it's really true. Like you know what? There's a part of me, and this is, there's a part of me that actually feels like I don't have enough experience doing a lot of different genres. You know what I'm saying? Like I haven't done a bunch of horror. I haven't done a bunch of comedy. Yes, I've done a little smattering of each of those things, of
right.
a lot of different genres. And there's a part of me that just feels like a lot of them are still really exciting to me, because I feel, for me as a composer, like they're really largely unexplored. So I kind of am loving every different genre. It's like I kind of love that drama, and then I love what we're doing on Riverdale, and then the really fast-paced, aggressive stuff that happens on Blindspot. But then also, I love doing the very heroic things, the very orchestral things, and the horror and the comedy. I don't know. It's all kind of like this huge, amazing playground that I'm like, I haven't really, I kind of just want to do more of all of it. Because like I said, it's still like a creative, playground and sandbox. And I'm like, I I haven't played with those toys yet, so
Yeah,
it's kind of
exactly.
exciting. All of it's really exciting to me.
So, I know I know you're really busy right now with some current projects. Is there any upcoming projects that you have that we don't know about yet, or that haven't happened yet that you can talk about?
Yeah, I know. Besides the season renewals of Blindspot and Riverdale,
Right. Congrats on
I'm
those.
starting a two. Yeah, I know. Thank you. I'm very excited. I think I'm excited to see where those ones go, and how we get to develop more of that music. So I'm doing starting probably later this summer, like a two-part documentary, not like a series, but just a kind of a two-part thing on some heady material, which I was really like, and I always really enjoy doing documentaries because again, I love working, in the fiction world and that kind of way. But there's also something really amazing about touching base with, much more human experiences and like
Yeah.
something that can really like make a statement. And I think, and that stuff gets really heady, and which I mean, it doesn't always have to. It can be fun documentaries too. This
Right.
one's not, but but so that's exciting. And then as a songwriter, I'm actually going into studio and just kind of holding up for a little while and writing some songs. And I mean, I can't be as rock star and say like, oh yeah, I'm going to come up with an album, but, but that's the goal, just to kind of come up with some new material and just just to kind of kick out the walls of creativity and something that's not to picture, which I love writing the picture, but I think for me it's part of my filling of the creative well, as it were, to also write away from picture,
Yeah.
and have basically different parameters in which to write. So not parameters of time or scene or tone, but just sort of explore other things, and hopefully all that will lead back to to new ideas for next season and future projects.
Yeah, I mean that's exciting, and I think it's always important to do that. I always talk to composers, and they love writing, away from picture. You stimulate a different part of your brain, and it's just different. Music organically just born out of ideas versus mirroring what someone else is telling you to try to do, which is always different. um,
Yes, yeah, which is also kind of exciting as a it's a creative challenge for those
yeah.
kinds of restraints too. But you're right, it's good to have, I think, a good balance of both.
Absolutely. Well, I've enjoyed kind of watching and seeing you grow into your sound and your career as it kind of grows more. And I just wanted to thank you again, Sherry, for your time today for chatting. It's been such a
Awesome,
great, awesome time to pick your brain and get into your process. So I really
thank
appreciate it, and I can't wait
thank
to hear
you.
what comes next.
Awesome, thanks so much for letting me share. I appreciate it.